Giacomo's. Sal, he's the man. Giacomo's Italian Market. We had him on the podcast. We're doing a pop-up together. I don't know if I've met anyone who as real as Sal. He hugs me every time I see him. I love Sal. And you know what else I love about him? His food. His food is fantastic. It's an Italian market right over there on College Hill. He's got sausages. He's got his own soda now. He's got... There's pasta, there's the rice balls. There is so much stuff over there that is just unique and special. And then you got the menu. The breakfast sandwich I was lucky enough to have, that's killer. The sausage sandwich is killer. The sausage itself is killer. The cheesesteak is killer. Giacomo's is such a unique thing to this area, and I'm so happy it's like 10 minutes from the studio. But Giacomo's, man, they are on... What is it? 700 Cattell Street in Easton, College Hill, and you can go to giacomositalianmarket.com. I cannot wait to do more things with him. I'm selling his sausage sandwich called the G-Spot. We're doing that on our pop-ups. So that is Giacomo's Italian Market. Please go check them out. Love them to death. They are a new sponsor, and thank you so much for sponsoring the show. Mindleaf CBD. I'm a lot calmer with this read. You know why? Because I'm using these products from Mindleaf. Liz came on the show multiple times. Awesome story on how she got into this. They are making all their products. We got the barbecue pretzels. The pretzels are fire. The tinctures, those are my big thing that I use. I go to sleep with those. The tinctures knock this groundhog out every time I go to bed. The CBD gummies are great, and the Delta 8s. The Delta 8s are fantastic. They'll put you on the moon. I enjoy that. Seriously though, this is a fantastic CBD product. I stand behind it. I got to use all of their stuff, and it is 100% the go-to thing I use now for joint pain, for going to sleep. The snacks are awesome as well. It's just an added bonus. I'll go over to the store and pick those up. Liz is one of a kind. You can follow their social media, Mindleaf CBD, and then it's mindleafcbd.com that you can order all their stuff online. So if you're not local to the area, if you are local, I suggest you go over to the shop. They have a really cool shop over on College Hill. It's actually close to Giacomo's, which is another sponsor. But that's Mindleaf CBD. Get your tinctures, get your Delta 8s, get your gummies, get all of your CBD needs from Mindleaf. We're doing pop-ups and things together as well. So follow their social media. We are connecting them into the network. So go support them because they support me. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. fiveanddimeeaston.com. They have their website officially up. You can shop most of their stuff online. They also have Fucked. They have Fucked in the store. I think they're the only one allowed to sell Fucked out of their store. It's 484-544-4719. That's at Five and Dime Easton on social media. These guys are great. I mean, they're killing it. It's the best skate shop, in my opinion, in the area. They have a lot of cool stuff there. Both the owners are rad. I stop in when I can. They're open Monday through Friday, 11 to 7, Saturday, 10 to 7, and Sunday, 11 to 5. There is someone always there to help you out with your needs. You can check their inventory off the website. You can check out some videos they got on there, and they're doing some cool things. Their social media is awesome. They support a lot of local skaters in the area, and they're growing. I'm excited to be a part of them growing. I'm excited to help them out. They're helping me out. It's a good relationship, and I push Five and Dime Easton because they're the best skate shop in the area. Check them out. I want to peel back how, because I met you, I believe through Yanni when he came down to do the cooking thing. Yeah. And then we started. Crazy. Yeah. And then it was crazy that it was pulled off and looked good in that section that was impossible to shoot and it's like low ceilings.
All the pepper in the room.
Yeah, we were like maced. I forgot about that.
Thank goodness we had like those masks on, or the pepper would have been just...
it was terrible. And then after that, I think I started following you and then saw you were into the tactical stuff. And then we started talking about that. And we've been wanting to do this for a while. But where did your career start with photography and media and even stepping into it as a hobby that then turned into a profession? Or where did it start?
Well, I was always interested in photography, but I didn't really take anything. I had a camera. And I did photo, and I went to Moravian College, so I did like digital photo there, but I wasn't hugely into it. But photography really started when I started working for Olympus. And then I was like,
that's right.
Yeah, right.
Because I knew Corey Schaffner and Kelly Pettis worked over there. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I started in 2010 there, and I mean, other than medical, they were cameras, and we were shooting all of our stuff on cameras. I was a graphic designer there. I was helping in this photo studio. I was learning all this new stuff.
That must have been cool to land that job.
Yeah, it was great. Oddly enough, I got it through Twitter. Like
It's
back
so weird.
when Twitter, we had tweet ups. Remember those? Back.
I never dabbled in Twitter.
Oh, it's crazy. Twitter's so different now. But back then, around like 2009, 2008, Twitter was like the thing to be like doing in the Valley as a business person or a young professional. And I had met the hiring person there, and I gave him my card and I said I was like looking for a job. At the time, I was a server-side web developer at the Morning Call. So I was making server-side applications, like what traffic's around me at this time, or like what's the weather. It's wild. I didn't do any really much design there. But then I had given my card to Chris McGinnis, who was the guy there, and kind of just snowballed after that. And I got my job through a tweet up, and that's where all the people from Twitter in the Valley would meet up, like at a bar or something, and just hang out.
I forgot they did that with Instagram and stuff for a little bit too.
Oh, really?
There was
it was like IG Bethlehem or something.
yes, it was the girl
Yeah.
IG Bethlehem, and she used to do those meetups.
Wow. And I've never met her. And
I think our cross passed through guests, and we were supposed to do something, but she was so early on that, I mean, it's years ago, but she's got to be comfortable with doing it now. But
Right.
I think it was so new to her back then that it was odd. Like back then, it was odd to have that kind of a following in the area.
Yeah. And it's crazy. But so then I got into cameras because we were using Olympus cameras to shoot product, like medical product, like these huge microscopes that would take over like a whole room. And we didn't have a studio back then, so we'd have to set up the studio like crazy. And I learned a lot from the photographer and the videographer there. And then I just kind of like, I got into it around 2011.
It's like priceless to pick up that information working with people.
Yeah, and it's awesome because I never really did much past the digital photo in college, but then I just learned from all these people who I worked with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's the best way to learn.
Oh yeah, and I keep learning from the people that I work with. It's I mean, photography is always a learning process, and that's what kind of keeps it exciting. And,
Rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. You can really go. You can. Oh, what's this new gear?
I watch where you pivot on there.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that's how I got into photography because I worked at Olympus, and Olympus was, even
Did you start on those cameras then?
Yeah. And then I randomly in like 2012 I got a Canon like T2i, like a really old Canon now. And I started shooting video and stuff for like airsoft, and that's like a weird kind of offshoot of my photography stuff. But really, like Olympus got me into cameras, and I'm still using Olympus cameras.
Yeah. How long did you stay there before you took the jump to doing photography? I mean, because we could kind of back it up a little bit because you started working for airsoft, meaning the guns with the pellets. Yeah. How the hell did that come about?
So
did you just like film something, then they reached out to you?
I started doing like participating in airsoft games like in 2008.
And is that pretty much like paintball except for?
It's like paintball. They're like little BBs.
I just meant like the actual game itself.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
like they have like forts and things.
Yeah,
and
yeah. And
it's
there's, I feel like airsoft's a little bit more of a simulation, like a military simulation. Like I've been to like whole like 60-hour long. You sleep in field.
I would totally do that. I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I did the experience at paintball once. We had a really cool. I went to Catholic school, so sometimes you would get teachers that weren't like my gym teacher also was the theology teacher because they couldn't get someone.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. So
yeah.
I remembered my buddy Sal traded. His parents owned a Blockbuster, and he traded free movies every Friday for A's. And I overheard it, and I was like, "Yo, I'm in on this." And he goes, "Keep it shut, both of you." He goes, "You have to pretend to do homework." But the guy was awesome. I'm not gonna say his name. So he, at the end of the year, we had to do a senior trip, and he was like, what do you guys want to do? And he was the only one who would like listen, where other people would be like, let's go to a museum.
Yeah.
And someone was like paintball, and he's like, yo,
Yeah.
he's like, what you want? And then everyone had their attention.
Yeah.
And then it was just, we split it into 2 teams, and it was like this rivalry until we went. And it was one of the best times I ever had.
You guys go up to skirmish.
I think it was up towards the Poconos.
Yeah.
I mean, this was 12th grade, so, or probably 11th
I think
grade.
they've been around forever. So
yeah. There was like the Black Hawk Down thing.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love stuff like that. So where the hell do you even find going to do airsoft like that? How do you get into the airsoft community, friend?
Well, back then it was all backyard, but now you can't really do that anymore. So it's changed. It's changed so much. But now it's like the best place now is to go to Zulu up in upstate New York. It's about a 2-hour drive. They host every weekend. They host a game. I go to night vision games all the time.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into the lunacy of your night vision.
Yeah,
obsession.
it's crazy. I am obsessed.
I know.
But back then, like we know there was like this one place in the middle of Allentown. Actually, no, right off of Airport Road called Grid Code. The local guy just opened up like a warehouse.
Yeah,
and we were just shot each other. And that's what we did, and then I just got into more and more, like, I started a team, and then I would do all of like the media for them, and that's kind of how
dope.
I got into the tactical.
It's fun
side.
getting into stuff like that. Mm-hmm. How do you know, like, we don't have to, we're not going to hang in airsoft the whole time. How do you know, like, when you get hit and shit? Because with paintball,
it hurts.
Yeah, but I mean, is it like triggered, or like, how do you know?
Oh no, you're just like
for point systems.
I felt it, and then like depending on the rules, like
so it's more of like an honor system with
yeah,
that.
definitely. Yeah. And like the more like hardcore Milsim, like there's a company called Milsim West.
Yeah.
Where they were reenactors before, like ex-Rangers.
Yeah.
Reenactors. They merged like the reenactment and airsoft. So when you get hit, you go down, you start screaming. You're like, oh, you need a medic.
Yeah.
And they come with like, we have like tourniquets
so much
on us.
Fun.
Yeah. There's a really cool documentary out right now by Vice called The Deep End about airsoft. Check it out.
I will.
It's wild.
I've been lately been dabbling into Vice stuff late night on YouTube, because they have a lot of. Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Yeah. I like that they have a lot of their small docs.
Check them out
on YouTube now, because the channel I don't have. So then you went from kind of branding and doing the media for the airsoft, and then where did that take you? Because you were still obviously working for Olympus. Mm-hmm. So like, where did kind of that? Because I know what it's like when you start. Like when I started out apparel originally, it would be when I designed the t-shirts for our beer softball team, and I was just telling somebody about it. So we were sponsored by Reichel Funeral Home, so we wanted to have skulls on the front. So we took a logo from the band Blood for Blood, and then we put it on the front, and then it said Reichel Funeral Homes. We wore all black, and we brought a pirate flag.
Oh, nice.
But that is like what kickstarted me being obsessed with taking an idea and creating it. So I'm guessing that's what happened when you're like outfitting your team for airsoft and making you guys like look cool and professional. Like that's a fun rabbit hole.
Yeah,
And then
it is.
Then the people in the group, they appreciate it so much because they want that. They just don't know how to do it. And then when there's somebody on the team that like
just does it,
does all that shit, like it looks dope. Like we used to roll up like all black, pirate flag, put it over our dugout, and everyone's like, these guys are sponsored by a funeral home. It was a blast. So where did you go from airsoft then, with like that rabbit hole of learning all of that?
Airsoft kind of went. Like once you got in airsoft, it kind of like went into like the gun industry a little bit, and branding an airsoft team. I'm like, I did T-shirts, I did their website. I knew how to do website stuff because I was a developer at the Morning Call, so I did the website stuff, and then I was getting into photography. So I like every game I would just take photos of like everything, and then sometimes I would just sit out and just take photos.
Were you dumping on the social media, or was social media not the way it is now? I mean, it obviously isn't the way it is now.
It's back then it was like forums.
Yeah.
Like PHP forums. And we had like back then like a call sign was like your name on the forum. Like I didn't know anyone's name anymore. Like people were just like their call signs. So like I was known as Primer.
Which is where you get your Instagram handle.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like nowadays there's no forums anymore.
No.
And everyone knows everybody's real name, unless you like have a fake name on Facebook, which is like hardly ever. Yeah. So we all know each other's like real names now. It's such a weird change. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I did a lot of photos, and then I started taking photos for some of the producers for the games that we played at. So then I was
So
like,
they saw your content.
Yeah,
and were
yeah.
like, hey, do you want to come out?
right,
Yeah.
and they would fly me. I flew to Milwaukee to take
That's so
photos
crazy.
at like a indoor. We played at the mall.
Yeah.
like old
Oh,
mall.
that's a cool
Yeah.
level.
It's wild in there.
Yeah.
Like you're like in a Victoria's Secret, and you're breaking through a wall into this like this like old KB toy. It's
Yeah.
it's wild.
It's like Call of Duty levels.
Yeah, no, it's exactly, it's real life Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But then you can go home, have a beer, you're fine, you're not
Yeah.
gonna die.
Yeah. That's dope. So they were
Yeah.
flying you around at that point to cover everything. And then I'm sure you just keep upgrading because it's not like you're just taking pictures. You're in the rabbit hole. How do I
Yeah.
make this big? You know, now you're editing probably the photos
Yep.
and like really getting it into, because I do think that you have a style to how you do stuff. So you're
I do.
creating your look at this point,
Right.
and then that's
Yeah.
just kind of growing you out further.
Yeah.
So now when you're like flying around and stuff, how long were you doing that?
Man, I haven't flown around in a while. I think the last time I went out was 2017. But then I would just drive. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I got married, and like I didn't go, like back when I was single, I would just be like, yeah, I'm gonna leave for like 4 days,
Yeah.
and I don't have any connection to anyone,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna peace.
Yeah.
And now I have to be like, hey,
Does this work?
Does this work with our schedules? And now that I have a kid, it's like,
Yeah.
I gotta schedule.
We'll try doing that in 2 years.
Yeah, I gotta like I do like there's one big airsoft game I go to every year. It's called Bad Blood, and it's up in EMR paintball park. It's like close to the PA New York border, but it's a leukemia game. So all the proceeds go to
Oh, that's great.
yeah, and so I volunteer my time. Tons of like almost 1,000 people on that game, so it's just tons of people. So that's really like the big game that I do every year, and then some like one-offs
Yeah.
that I can get to if I can.
So when you transitioned then into doing all of this, at what point were you realizing that you kind of would be allowed to separate from Olympus and just start doing this full time or start offering things full time?
I don't think I could ever separate. Like there, I always read articles. They're like, doing the photography stuff is at full time is so hard.
Yeah.
And I always got that because I'm a terrible business person, and the business side of photography has always been hard for me because I don't know what should I charge. And a lot of like newer photographers always ask me, since I've been around for so long, what do I charge? And I'm like, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
But
It's
also
hard.
make sure that you can get in, like make it like okay for you to do this. So I've never really thought that I could really just split off totally. So I do this all on the side because I'm still working for.
Oh, you're still at Olympus?
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we got sold off, but our brand now is OM System. But yeah, I mean, I'm still the graphic, content and graphic designer there.
Yeah. And at this point, it's probably not easy, but it's like you know what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
not learning from other people. And
Right,
now
yeah.
you're the one
Yeah.
probably showing other people what to do.
Yeah, and now I'm managing the content and design for like the US and Europe.
Yeah,
So,
like that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not just like kind of working for them. Like you have an extensive role there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you start kind of getting into photography and it kind of like people started contacting you? Because that's got to be weird.
It is weird. And fortunately, I have awesome friends who just like when I was getting into photography, I said, hey, I want to do this like high fashion shoot. Go to your wardrobe and see if you have anything that's close to this. I want to go somewhere. We went to Nakamixon, and I had like two of my like fit people friends.
Yeah.
Just like do like these like high fashion kind of looking things. I had people come in, do like makeup, and I had like people holding reflectors, and I was like, this is really cool. Like I'm gonna do this. And then once I saw that I could do that, then I said, well, I could do this. I organized it. I got all the things together. I can probably do a little more. So I can do weddings. So I started weddings.
What was your first wedding? I'm sure that was nerve wracking.
It was hard.
I'm sure.
My first wedding was in Philly.
There's got to be so many self-doubts. Like, am I getting
my
enough
goodness.
pictures? Is this the right picture? Because you're capturing somebody's day,
Right.
and if it's not captured correctly, they're
And if you
they're
mess
definitely gonna
up-
let you know.
Yes, and thankfully, because I also DJ'd weddings for a little bit too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
But for like weddings are so hard. They're just hard on your body, your psyche, like the whole day. And my first wedding, it was like 2013. I didn't have an extensive lens kit, so I rented like 2 or 3 lenses just because I didn't have them.
Yeah.
And we were in Philly. We were the bride and groom wanted to have their photos like next to the Philly Art Museum, but I found out that I didn't have, like, you had to have permits, so we had to like run over there, get photos, and then run around just to make sure that the police didn't get, or the security wasn't there. And then the reception was in this old art gallery that was turned into an art gallery from a cathedral. Really cool place, but it eats your light like crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's right.
So it was
terrible
so
lighting.
dark. So I had brought these like flashes that I had borrowed from Olympus because I didn't have any flashes back then. And I was just popping these flashes, and I was like, it was tough. But I mean, we got him, and I had a second shooter there.
Yeah.
And like, whew.
How long is the edit process on that when you get everything back home, and then do you immediately put them in the hard drive, or are you nervous about how they're going to look?
I immediately dumped
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And back then I didn't have, well, first, back then I shot so many photos because I had no idea what I was doing. So I had like, I probably shot like 4,000 or 5,000 photos, just blah. And then my second shooter had shot that many because we were both like new to this whole
Yeah.
thing. And so we had like 10,000 photos, and then I didn't know how to ingest them because I had no idea like how to do that. So I was going through them one by one. So it was just, it was
Yeah.
terrible. Now I have like a system where I probably only shoot like maybe 4,000 photos for like the whole wedding, like both of our shooters. And then I have like, I have an ingest process that I like select them all that I think are good and bring them in and edit them. Like the amount of time from now compared to like back then is minuscule.
It's crazy because I mean we were talking about it a little bit earlier about with how the editing process used to go with this, and it's funny because like the more people I bring on who are like doing their own thing and following passions and whatnot, all the cliches are stupid. Like where like if you stick with something, you'll learn it and master it, and like it'll become a thing. But the beginning is always the worst part. I mean, I remember sitting.
Yeah.
I used to have my desk back there, and then I had like an older iMac that was like, it was hard to run Final Cut on it. Because when I bought it, I thought I needed that iMac.
Right.
And then 6 years later, when I actually needed the iMac,
It was too old.
It was too old. It worked for what it was, and I won't ever get rid of it. So I would go through with the multicam. And when you go through with the multicam, well, first of all, to learn how to upload multicam and all that, I had to call my friend and or watch 9-year-olds from Europe on YouTube explaining it. So like I would just sit down here, and the anxiety of it, because we did the first show and it was so much to get this whole place built.
Yeah.
And then like, we had a crew the first time we ran it just to make sure everything went well.
Right.
And then, okay, well now you got to edit it. It took 3 weeks for me to do that because of just, all right, well, this isn't working. This isn't lining up. The clips aren't lining up. Then you start realizing that like it's just stupid stuff. Like not explained in Final Cut on how to do anything. So like what you said, it's like I would have to take 4 cards from 4 different cameras, load them all in separately. Each one would take about 20 minutes to load into the computer because it's all 4K or whatever. Then when that time was taken, then I would have to take all 4 of those then and then load them into Final Cut. And then if like now with my newer computer, I can work while it's loading. With the older one,
You had to wait.
you had to wait. So it would take a day to load all the footage in. Then the third day, I would have to mentally prep to be like, okay, this is going to work. So then you would have to select all the clips, then go into multicam. Then that would load for another 25 minutes.
Jeez.
And then if it all went correctly, day 4, I could like sit down. And then when I would be able to sit down, then it was, all right, cool, it's working. And then it would be all 4 tracks, and it would be, okay, Mike's talking 1, 2, 3, 4. And I would literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, would have to, when the person's talking, press the number for what they are, and I would have to sit through the entire podcast. What it was good for was what I did lost about doing that is that's when I could find the promos, because I'd laugh and I'd be like, oh, that's good. And I would write the times down.
Yeah.
Then when I would go back to edit, it's much easier. Now I don't have time to watch them. So getting into the promos hasn't been the easiest thing. But I try and tell everyone until like I just didn't give up. I mean, there were some times where I was on the phone with my friends, just like anxiety ridden, like flipping out, being like, one of the most frustrating things is computers when there's no instructions on editing and you just have to figure it out. And then if you can't even find the correct thing on YouTube, or like, I think my buddy then gave me a password into one of those things where it's like those accounts where you just like type it in and they explain everything for you. And it's like a program that you pay for, and then you can like ask any question with Final Cut. But it was such a learning curve to do that. And then until we got the switcher, now I can just, it's all edited live. And, but now it's like I can have this done in 15 minutes. The amount of time that saves is ungodly.
Right.
I'm like a month and a half ahead on podcasts. I wouldn't even have the room on my computer to do all of this the old way. But no one ever realizes that those roadblocks and shit were a lot. Like, there's been times where I was like, this is where people they just stop editing and then they don't work on projects anymore.
Right. Yeah. But you put in the work and you just get, you learn. Yeah.
So, I mean, doing a wedding like that and having the dump out and having to find a system on that must have been crazy.
Yeah, it was.
What was it like presenting the pictures to the bride and groom? Because you just send them like a preview, or do you have to sit down with them?
I sent them the preview, and
you're probably like, oh my god.
I sent them the preview and I said, we have some really good photo. Like, fortunately, like I had about 2 years of solid photography under my belt,
and you have an eye for stuff. Like, you definitely have a way that is your look that would be appealing for someone.
And
to purchase.
my friend that we actually started a company called Aptitude for a while, that we would just do like this kind of stuff. And so he has a good eye too. So we didn't feel that we didn't have like good photos. It was just trying to get through them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in presenting him, the bride and groom actually, the groom was from England. So they moved like while we were editing. So I didn't have to do anything. I literally back then I put him into like a Dropbox.
Yeah.
And I sent him to the link, and then I put him on like an old, like I went to Staples, I got a USB drive, and I mailed it to them. And then I was like, these are your photos. And like I think we charged like $500 for both of us for a 10-hour wedding. Like nothing.
Yeah.
Like
when did you start realizing like what your time was worth? And like, because I mean, when I even watch photographers at weddings, like, it's work. Like, they are running up. Plus, you have to completely horse blind everybody and then be like, nope, get the shot. That was the toughest thing even back in the day when I would go out with the camera. Because I've always been interested in media. The technology wasn't caught up to the point where, like, you didn't have iMovie back then. You didn't have things where it was you couldn't do everything on your phone. So, like, it was always frustrating to get to a point and then not be able to do it anymore. It was difficult back in the day.
And I think what happened was I got married, and then my time, I couldn't just go off and do whatever. And so I needed to slot time for things. And I'm like, now my time is like, I have to make it worth my time to be here. So then I realized, you know what? Now, if I ever shoot a wedding, I'm gonna hand out my wedding packet, and these are my prices. And if the bride and groom like the prices and can do that, then it's worth my time. And that's just how it is now. Because
and if they say no, you get your time. And a lot of people, I mean, it's hard in the beginning because even like the pricing, it's like everybody prices it wrong.
It's so hard. And I'm one of my friends is getting into photography like full time now, and he's always asking me about pricing, and he's always doing stuff like way low, and I'm like, you got to, you're doing this full time, this is like your job, you need to price up a little bit, because right now you're undercutting a lot of people, which is great for you because you're getting the jobs, but then your time is just, you're getting paid pennies right now.
Yeah.
And you can't,
because you're going to get you're gonna have way too much work, and then it's not gonna be worth the money, and then it's
Yeah.
just like you're just breaking even,
And then you can't get out
or
of
making
it.
a couple $100, and then it's not
Yeah.
worth anything you're doing at all.
And then everybody who's getting like the word of mouth, hey, you can this guy charges this much. You can't climb yourself out of that money hole of like low prices.
Yeah, because if you're known for doing great work and being cheap, and then now you're doing great work and it's priced the rest as everyone else, oh well, he raised his prices. Now it's almost a bad look when the bad look was that you were too cheap. I tell people that with t-shirts, even like sometimes people will want to sell them for like $10-15, and I was like, do not do that. I said 20.
Yeah.
At least 20.
At least 20.
I said, then there's people who go too far with it. It depends on what you're selling, but like for a basic t-shirt, you have to be at $20.
Yeah.
22, 23. You add shipping into it, you're at 25. But if you're selling them for 15, there's people who won't buy them because they're 15.
Yeah.
And then if you're known for being 15, then now you have the problem of raising your prices. We did that wrong with the burger, where like when we first started selling the smash burger, it was $5.
Yeah.
It's like a $10 burger easily. We're getting butcher bacon, like everything is.
Oh,
You
geez.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like, well, we took bacon off of it eventually, but we were getting butcher bacon, butcher meat, and like we were just doing it all. And then we were done. And then I was like, oh well, what was the cost of everything we did? And like that's when I really started dialing in being a business in every aspect of what I was doing, because I had to pay attention with the food, because it was, loading up the van, setting everything up. And then when you break everything down, it's like, well, that wasn't worth the gas. That wasn't worth the travel. Even though we sold out, we still made no money.
Right.
And then we had to slowly bring it up to like an $8 burger. And then even now it's like, I want 10, but it's like, I don't want to ask for 10. You could do that shit in New York all day long,
Right.
But so now it's like, I just throw in like a little side, and that like costs us nothing. And then
Right.
it's like, I make up the money through the $10 that way. And then I know I'm making the money off
Yeah,
of it.
exactly. And in the photo industry, it's so hard because everyone you ask has a different opinion about something.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's really, you just kind of have to gauge your time and see how much your time is worth. And then, and I have the ability to do that because sometimes like people who do it full time, they have to get that work because that's, the money. But fortunately I have a full-time job, so
Yeah.
I can take, whatever, I don't need to do that wedding if you don't want to pay me. So,
And your full-time job, it's not like, I have a lot of people, I had an artist come on and he's doing like manual labor, and like he hates it and he wants to just be a freelance artist, but
Yeah.
like at least your job is what you're doing on your
Exactly.
side. And it's also something that you grew into where you're running a department. It's not something that you hate driving into because
Right.
it's correlating with what you're doing.
Exactly.
Which is awesome to even be able to have started there, held on to that, grew into that, and then also have the side hustle. But then if you have the side business and you price it correctly, you're only going out to do that, and it's a lot of extra money because you're pricing it correctly to your time.
Exactly.
And that's like a very hard lesson to learn. And it's also, doing this for 20 years, you start realizing where people fuck up, where people give up, and where people no longer really want
Right.
to run a business anymore.
And it's a passion thing too, because
Yeah,
I mean, you can,
yeah.
there's a lot of times where you're just like, man, this job was terrible, and but I got to get through it because I'm getting paid for it. And back then, like, I didn't even charge until after I gave stuff because I knew like my money was at the end of this, so I have to get this done.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the drive for me to finish a project that probably wasn't great, but I mean, it was an interesting learning experience. And
Yeah, it kind of puts like a carrot in front of you to
right,
finish
exactly.
it up.
So that was it's hard lessons, but I mean, I've been doing it for like 12 years now.
Yeah.
So I'm up where I really wanted to be back then.
Yeah.
Which
it's
is nice.
funny how long it actually takes and
Oh,
how
yeah.
much hard work it is.
It is.
But like what you said, it's a passion, so the years just go. Go. Like I think we're coming up on 6 years with this, 5-6 years with doing this. Like I remember doing this shit in my apartment down the road, and like I knew I knew it in me that I was just like, oh, we're gonna do this. And then they're like, all right. And I'm like, I remember calling my co-host and being like, hey, I'm gonna get rid of my apartment. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yep, I'm gonna move back into my parents' basement, and that money from that apartment, we're gonna get a studio because we need to do this proper. And then when we got in there, then it was like, like what you're saying, like I wanted the lights and the camera, but that took 3 years. You just, I didn't have money to invest in it, and it was all learning curves.
Yeah.
And and then all the stupid stuff on the back end with like, uploading it and having to have like, all the stuff to go onto iTunes. Like that was crazy to figure all that stuff out back then when it wasn't a thing. Now it's like you can go on to Anchor and be going out, and if you get enough hits, you got sponsors throwing you money, and I'm like, what? Like you're crazy. But the end result is, and I tell everybody, like some people will be like, oh, that's so cool you do that, and I'm like, dude, this was a mountain of work.
Yeah, it is. It is, especially like when people come into my my studio that I built.
Yeah, I want to get into that.
They just see that, and they don't really see how long I've been wanting a space like that, and what I've been like, and like who I've been talking to figure out like what I needed for that space. And I like for the longest time I just set up, like when I first started, I had like a sheet. I probably have a photo on my old Flickr account of just like a sheet hanging on a wall. With like a flash and like a old door mirror.
Yeah, the amount of money I wasted down at Dan's Camera City, stuff like green screens and everything just got wrecked.
Yeah, it's wild.
When did you decide that you wanted to do a studio? Now you have a very unique studio in the way you did it, but like there has to have been an idea at some point where you're like, hey, I can start doing a studio, because then it looks like at some point you got into taking like product shots, and then like you were kind of taking some really cool stuff. And then like, when did you decide that you wanted to even have a studio and a workplace like that? Because that's kind of like, I know friends who did photography back in the day that like rented like very small squares in Bethlehem where they had their studio. So like when did you want to do that?
I mean, I was always interested in studio stuff because then I didn't have to go anywhere. So I was like, what can I do and not go anywhere? Because like it took gas, and back in the day I drove when I first started doing this, I drove this Pontiac Grand Prix like turbo.
Yeah, doggy.
That I bought like for $2,000. Like none of it worked. I'm surprised it still drove. So I didn't really want to go anywhere because it was like 12 miles a gallon. So I was like, well, what can I do here? And then so I started doing like airsoft gun photos. And then I did that, and I got into some weird products for like New Jersey SWAT or something, like some like little pieces. I don't even remember. It was so long ago, but I was like, oh, this is cool. I could like do product photos, not go anywhere. I could just have them mail them to me. Take them and send them out. And then, so that kind of snowballed into getting into, I do a lot of composite stuff where if I can't go somewhere, I'll take a photo of myself and then put myself there. So I did a lot of that stuff. And then I was like, man, I really need a good studio space because I just have these janky things that I either like scrounged around, bought off of like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist back then. With like these bulbs, those like old bulbs, with like the umbrellas. So I was using those. I was like, this is terrible. But it kind of like kept going and evolving into more and more of like a studio where like, oh, now I actually have a real backdrop. Like now I'm actually using real paper. And then I would start like, now I actually have real flashes. And then it kind of all culminated into, hey, I have a kid coming in July. I need to build this studio or I'll never
all this money is gonna go to a nursery.
So I was like, so I'm gonna tear apart this other part of my basement, which was just storage, paint it, tear all of the stuff out of the ceiling, and build a studio space where I knew I could bring down backdrops like really quickly, do all my stuff there, do video. Also, I'm 100% work from home, so I have my like work from home setup there and like my video editing gaming machine there too. So like that was all just little bits and pieces of this is what I want in my studio. How do I picture?
Because the way it looks is like super unique, and like how you blacked everything out. Like, could you envision it all in your head? And then like, how hard was it for you to take exactly what was out of there? Because I know with building this, it's like I had a wild idea, and then like we slowly started painting, and like I'm really excited to get into the new studio because now I know what I'm doing.
Right.
So like that's another huge thing that people don't realize is like when you built that studio, that was really like your fifth one.
Yeah.
It was just the most professional one and was the one how you wanted it the whole time, like you said. So going into the new studio, it's like the whole podcast is changing where we're going to get rid of these and do boom mics so you don't have shit everywhere and better camera angles. Like these camera angles we almost didn't know how we were going to do it once we had it set up. Where now it's like, oh, well, I need this. And then, even with that studio, everyone's going to be like, yo, this is so cool. And I'm like, this is 20 years of figuring this out.
Yeah.
So like, how was it for you to kind of rip that out of your head? Because I mean, watching that come together, I was just so enthusiastic from somebody who has built their version of what a studio would be to them. So like, that had to be super like creatively refreshing to do that.
It was really cool. It was so hard to like.
Oh yeah, the stuff that you did was like, you know what I mean. But I like that you chose to do that. It wasn't like, hey, you just painted your back wall, added some lights, and been like, hey, I stream.
Yeah. I mean, I follow this guy named Joe Edelman. He's a photographer from the Lehigh Valley. He's in Allentown. And he has a studio that he does a lot of portraiture in. And so he has like whole video going over his setup, and a lot of that stuff was like, oh, I could use that. Yeah. So like the boom light fixtures that I have like anchored to my wall for all of my lighting. Yeah. Like that was straight out of something that he did. I do a lot of darker background stuff. Most of my stuff is very like either on black or like on dark gray. So I knew that all my walls had to be dark. Because a lot of other studios who do more lifestyle, like brighter things, they want all of the light bouncing everywhere. Yeah. And I want like no light. So that's why I have my whole ceiling. I bought from Harbor Freight, I bought one of those sprayers. Yeah. And I had no idea what I was doing. So thank goodness, like I have like mood lighting in my studio because the paint job is so bad.
What did you do? You bought a sprayer and just
bought a sprayer and I just went to town with black and it was just leaking everywhere. And I was like, well, good thing I did this before my walls. Yeah. So then I did my walls and I had to like put plastic all around the ceiling. And that was, the walls were just dripping because I didn't know what the consistency of the paint when you have to add water, but I didn't know how much water. I put way too much water.
So everything just dripped down.
Yeah. But I mean, it worked out. And the floor, like it took me 3 weeks to just pull the resisting floor out to put the peel and stick floor down. It was tough. And like now I'm getting old and like my back hurt and I was like,
oh yeah, the older you get with doing any of that
I was like,
stuff.
I was taking the heat gun to the old floor, just trying to like get it up. But I mean, I got it up and I built all the stuff and I purchased all the things that I needed. And I had like one friend make me a table, kind of like this big, because I knew I needed 2 workstations. Yeah. So I have a custom built like desk. Yeah. That's like 9 feet long.
I love having space like that.
Yeah, it's great.
What was it like to kind of accomplish that and start working in it?
It was awesome. It was so like, it was like and now I can be down here for like 16 hours a day. Yep. And not feel like, I really want to do something. Like I really want to make an office.
No, it totally helps out. I mean, everything down here is completely. There are things that everything has a story, and like for a long time when it was kind of the way it was a real like. It was my space. It was where I want to be. It's where I want to work. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'll put music on and there's no windows here. I cannot wait for the next studio. There's 4 windows. Yeah. And I'm just like, yeah. And then one day I'll probably just be like, this is way too annoying and just black everything out again. But, being down here, I get so much work done because I'm just in my own space.
Right,
and then if I like want to grab a cup of coffee, I can do that. And then it's just like, I'm on my own schedule. I can do my own hours. So it's like, I didn't know what it was going to be like working, because essentially it's kind of the same as working from home where, I have to do this. I'm not, I don't have somebody watching over me. So I'm like, oh, I got to get back to work. Or you're not in a routine where it's like, I can go for a hike and then come back here. But like being in a space that like motivates you to work or makes you feel like this is your space, like, like you have such like a Laszlo layer. It's like a war room video game feel to it. Like we're like, that's got to be so cool to work out of that.
Yeah, it is. And it's, I love it because I do feel at home there. And I bought like a crappy little couch from like IKEA or something, and I stuck it there because I just was like, if I don't want to be sitting at my desk, I can just kind of chill on the couch.
No, it's good to have little spots, so when you feel like you kind of been somewhere too long, like I can go over there, or like sometimes I'll go up into the lobby. Like I like to have areas to kind of rotate
Right,
through.
yeah. And I have like little spaces for things. So like I have my day job workspace, and then I'll have my like video editing workspace, and then on my other side I have like my shipping for like low speed gear and like all that like random like little patches and stickers and stuff. So,
yeah. I think it's rad you do that. I mean, I always had when I started the clothing, I would always make stations where like, okay, this is my shipping and receiving, and it's like you're slowly building an area. It's cool. I can't wait to do it in the next spot because it's going to be twice the space, and like there's a little bit of like basement space, and I'm already thinking about putting like taking that cabinet and putting it on rollers so it slides and there's a door. And then if I go down in below, I want to kind of put like my video game stuff down there, like get a pinball machine. Like that's kind of my getaway. Because the other thing I learned is if I don't put that shit in the basement, people are in your space. And then when people are in your space, you're cleaning up after them. You're also not getting work done. It's like, having company over constantly. So it's like if I have an area down there and that I don't have to have that cleaned up to have people coming over.
Right. Yeah.
I knew this was going to be a good podcast just because your social media is fun for me to follow because I just see parallel things. Now, the other thing that you are involved in with is the tactical stuff, and you have another small business inside that. Yeah. But I love that you do like that's how my brain works.
Yeah, I'm all over the place.
I'm like, cool, I'm going to go over here and do t-shirts. Now I'm going to come over here. But then I realize like, that's not something that goes away. And if you think that that's going to go away with like medicine or anything, like that doesn't stop. So like to me, I just built a hamster wheel, and now I'm on the hamster wheel where I'm like, okay, I don't want to do food anymore. Cool. I'm going to go do a podcast today. All right. I want to do podcast. All right. Let's just focus on this. So it's like my focus is so all over, but I now know that I can just go beep, beep, beep. And if you just move the focus around, it catches the pattern of the irregularness. And then you can literally just be a wheelhouse of creativity.
Yeah, and I get bored with things very quickly.
Same.
So so all of these different outlets like really, really helps.
Yeah.
So like, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Yesterday I was over at Pat's doing video, doing food. Like I love food and taking photos of food. And then like maybe tomorrow I'm doing like a night vision, like something night vision themed, and then like the next day I'm working on like a patch for or a t-shirt for something else. So it's always different and something new. And then I have my steady like day job where I'm just like kind of centers me a little bit. So I'm not like
Yeah. I like that you have the day job. It's like what is it, like Peter Parker where he goes to the news station, it's like you can do that back and forth. Where did the tactical stuff start?
Definitely from Airsoft.
Yeah.
Airsoft kind of evolved into like getting my first like rifle, and then like, oh, this is cool, but this is expensive because like 12 years ago.
That's way more expensive.
Yeah,
than
12
airsoft.
years ago it was like ammo was lots cheaper, obviously, but now it's but I mean, buying like a real rifle was like, oh man, this is not a toy. Like, so that was a big transition, and then it kind of.
Did you start going to ranges?
Yeah, and this is like this random range up in Bangor that I used to go to, and it was just like a one lane with my buddy who now actually he's like a agency arms rep, so I got into that, but not heavily because I was such an airsofter. Like I'll always be an airsofter, but oddly enough, COVID kind of pushed me towards the gun industry.
Yeah.
Because airsoft games were just so full of people that I was like, there's a lot of people here. Yeah. I don't know if I want to be here.
No, the mass grouping and all that definitely.
So then I got into hats. Oddly enough, I didn't wear hats until COVID came around, and then I really got into hats. and then I got into like gun stuff because I could like build my own stuff here. I could go to a range. Maybe there's like 2 or 3 people with me.
Did you start getting into building guns down in the studio and stuff?
Not really building guns, more like building gear stuff. My friend is like a at-home armorer, so he'll do all the like real stuff because I'll explode something, and there's a lot of tolerances that I don't even know. I was like, can you do this here? But like I really got into that, and then I was looking for an extra income when my wife decided to stay at home with my son.
Yeah.
So then I was really into night vision, but
how did you get into that?
So one of those milsim games.
Yeah.
was 2015 for Milsom West. It was down in South Carolina, and we were out in the field for like 3 days, and you drop in as like a paratrooper in the middle of the night. So like, and they say no flashlights because people can see your flashlights. So that's where night vision came in, and I was like, I'm gonna buy my first night vision unit for this airsoft game, and it was like this really crappy.
The commitment is so awesome.
It was really crappy.
Of course it is. Why would you spend all kinds of money on that?
And now like
right away.
And, yeah, right. And so then I was like, night vision is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
because I can like everything's dark, and then I flip them down, and it's like
you can see.
It's like light as day. So then I really got into night vision. So over the years I would like upgrade. Yeah,
because I saw like you started doing the photography at night, and then you started kind of mixing the photography. But I also like how all of your stuff blends over. It doesn't overlap it completely. It just kind of blends into it and blends into it. But that's what I noticed. 'Cause I was like, oh man, this guy's got a wheelhouse of just kind of really swimming through this creativity and stuff. So like I saw you started getting into the night vision with the photography, then it was with the airsoft, and then it just kind they overlapping into kind of like, I don't know, like a snowball almost.
Right. And then night vision devices, who they operate out of Whitehall. And they're the one of the top 3 night vision manufacturers in the country. And they're like right next door.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And they were looking for a social media guy. And I was like, hey, I'm your guy.
But that's awesome that you got that skill set from the jobs that you did. Then you took the skill set and then grew it into doing the weddings and the photography and all that. But at this point, when you're reaching out to them, like, you have confidence,
right? Yeah,
because and you also like, what also is weird is when you really break down, like if somebody's like, hey, what is it you do, Mike? And then I'm like, oh, well, I am an executive producer. Like, if you start labeling everything I'm doing, I have a pretty extensive resume.
Yeah.
So like being able to then take that to them and be like, well, here's what I do at Olympus, who's a known real business. Then this is what I do on my side. That's got to feel good to kind of turn that in and be like, holy shit, I think I could be working with
and
the night vision.
Well, oddly enough, which is kind of a small world here, their graphic designer was one of my students at Moravian College. So like, that's kind of like hey, we're looking for a social media guy. And I was like, let me design you this whole packet of things. And I just handed it off to them, and I said, hey, this is what I can offer. And they're like, sure. And I was like, oh, now I got to create content. I think that's the biggest thing. That's the hardest thing, is like finding new things to create.
Yeah.
And it's tough. Like, content creators, like, people are like, yeah, I'm a content creator. That's a tough job.
Yep.
Like, I only have to do like 2 posts a week, but I mean, it's like coming up with new stuff. Like, I'll be going, like, I went down to West Virginia last weekend just to, get content.
Yeah. My
friends were going down there to like do cool stuff and like shoot at night. But I was like, I want to do cool stuff, but I need content.
Yeah.
So it's like a hard line to kind of straddle, but I mean,
yeah, when you start getting into the definition of content and understanding like what you need for your social media, and I try and just constantly looking for new content and then just turning things into content. And then, like having food now as an avenue has been such content for me lately, but like that's got to adjust because I don't want to just keep putting food, but I know it went from clothing to podcast to food, but now it's like, I'm going to go back to clothing and then kind of re-release stuff. But now I can take the pressure off of the food. But then now I have podcasts. I have my weird, stupid stuff that I put out that's me. And then I have... then I have food, but then I have my apparel coming. And then now with the new studio, it's like some people don't get what I'm trying to do. And I'm like, dude, I'm creating a content wheelhouse. Like, I'm going to be able to start now taking content from the cafe and putting that up there. There's going to be content from the kitchen that's going to be able to put up there. When we have specials in food, that's separate content. When you have people coming in and do pop-ups, that's separate content. When I go down the hall and I have a cooking show, a lounge podcast, and then my interview podcast, now that's 3 separate forms of podcast, plus me putting out hiking shit. And then I'm like, cool, I think this is enough now that like it's going to keep someone's attention because you're not just repeating. And if you don't have 1 million followers, you're repeating content all the time and keep putting the same shit out or posting old content isn't going to be anything anybody wants to think. And like, I pay attention to that a lot.
Yeah, and I get bored.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm
bored of food right now. I'm tired of doing it.
Yeah, and what's funny is because like I'm one of those people who doesn't like to go back and find something to post, even
Yeah.
if I haven't posted it. Like I want to shoot something new because I
Yeah.
want to do something new, and then I can post something new. So that's always like what can I do next week? So
And then paying attention to the reactions of people. Like I started learning how to take pictures from just posting all my shit at Jacobsburg. And that's just taking pictures with a phone. So using portrait mode as on the simplest form of that's what I choose to do.
Yeah.
But I learned that in going to Jacobsburg. But then people were commenting and being like, hey, I really like the hiking stuff. So I was like, cool, well, I like hiking and I know enough people like seeing it. So I'm going to stay in the hiking lane. But like, if you're not getting feedback and you're just posting the same shit all the time, you could be driving your social media into the ground and not even realizing it.
Exactly.
Like the feedback's huge when people start being like, they like your stuff, or they take the time out to be like, yo, that night vision stuff's crazy.
Yeah.
Or like when you do because you do it very well, where like when you did like the Call of Duty thing and like you made your own thing and like, or like you'll just kind of go out of nowhere, you'd be like, hey, I did a bigger project, and then just drop that. Like, you got to be doing stuff like that.
And it keeps things fresh.
Yeah.
Which I always appreciate because I'm always like, wow. And then sometimes you just have to kind of look and see like, well, I tried something new and it really didn't work. And you're like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll probably do it because I like it, but I'll probably won't post it just to like get views. But I think a lot of people enjoy the behind the scenes stuff because I'll post a photo but sometimes like now I'll just post the behind the scenes and the actual finished photo is like 2 or 3 swipes in.
Yeah.
Just because I know some of the people who follow me now appreciate like the process.
Yeah.
So
and then you also build a following off the process where now you have people who are following because they're learning something from you because they wanna grab info to build a studio the way you did with watching that other guy's YouTube. And then when you start getting into YouTube, that's a whole nother monster.
Yeah.
Did you start doing YouTube?
I did a few. It's video takes so long.
Yeah.
So I just photos I can do and I can like I can get those out. I can do behind the scenes and I can like write a little bit. Video I have to like set up all this stuff.
And you got to cover your ass on. Next month we're dropping a commercial we do a working class t-shirt, and this year I decided to choose somebody and tell their story, but now you got to tell their story in 45 seconds. So like we took all this footage and it's awesome, and Matt, who does a lot of video work, brought all, he has all this crazy equipment. He brought it out, we filmed it. It took over a year. I finished it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because one, I now know that I will hire an editor. Like, I don't have the time to do that shit anymore unless I just immediately sit down and do it because I'm really into the project.
Yeah.
But then that's hard because then you send the finished product out to people to ask how it is, and then it starts dragging, and then I'm trying to find a date for it, and then it's like, then I'm trying to set up apparel drop shipping, and like now it's like, I learned so much from that where I think some people would be like, I'm not doing a video again. But now I like was talking to Matt and I'm like, cool, like let's hire an editor next time. But this is the first piece of content I've done that I'm not worried about it being flagged. And that's since I started this. I put YouTube shit up and they pulled it because of the music. But the music's what I build everything off the music.
Yeah.
Because I forgot you're so into music too. So like when I hear stuff in a car, I'll build a video to it.
Yeah.
And then I build the video out and then add the music, and then now it's flagged or it won't go out further. It's a little bit easier now because of the way Instagram did the reels. That made like licensed music way easier to use. But this is the first time that like a friend of mine scored the music, and then we went through a voiceover.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Which I've never been a part of. So I'm on the line with this guy who's doing takes, and he's like reading this script, and then they're like, what do you think? And then I have to like actually direct, like you're almost directing and then I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So like the whole time I'm like, yes, this is that, and then I was like, I dropped everything and I just started swearing and talking to him the way I do to my friends, and I'm like, well, this is what I want, and I'm like I need you to hug it, and then I just started talking to him like a person. Then he calmed down a little bit, and then after it was over, the guy who was on the call with me, Don, was like, hey, you did really good. And I'm like, oh my, I'm like sweating buckets. I'm like, I didn't even know what we were doing. But then I get the voiceover footage, and then now you have to take the voiceover and lay that in there. So now I have to take this dude's his levels and how he says everything has to match the music, and now there's volume. Like, dude, video's a monster.
It is.
And then if you put shit up and then 3 people watch it, and you're like,
all of that work. I do some video work for a cleaning company over in Phillipsburg. Platinum Star Services.
Yeah.
So I did a recent ad that ran on like Channel 69 and stuff for them, and so that was cool because I like one of my kind of like goals was to do more video. And then I remembered why I didn't do much videos because it just was.
Well, you've been
such a
doing video
big...
with Pat. You shot that stuff down here too.
Yeah, I know, and it's I like it. I love the process, but it just takes. It takes probably like 50% more. I mean,
absolutely. When we used to do just audio, I would have this up same day.
Yeah,
because people would be like, "When is this up?" And we're like, "Now." And the podcast used to drop after the episodes, and then I would listen to them on the ride home, and that's how I would like kind of. But it was exciting back then. I was like, "Oh," like you're like listening to yourself, and you're like, "Oh my god, I said and the 300 times." Like you kind of pick yourself apart, but like now it's like. There's a lot more that comes to it, even with the amount of time I save with this. But like, I got to cut all new commercials now. So like, when you cut commercials, people that don't realize that takes me 4 or 5 hours. I have like 10, 15 businesses that I have to cut all new promos for.
Yeah. Each
one's at least 3 to 4 takes, unless I get in a rhythm. But then I'm getting up, recording, walking back over there. Like it's not. Video's a monster.
Yeah, and
I hope to have like a team that I pay eventually. That would be like the one person to just.
Audio is such a big part of video too, and
and
fortunately,
if your audio's wrecked.
Fortunately, you have a nice setup down here because I was doing I was like virtual hosting an awards thing for a guy in the UK, and I bought new lights like literally Friday, and they came with like a 60-watt like LED panel, and I was like, okay, let me use these as my video lights, but I didn't really think about. There was a loud fan on all of them.
Yeah.
So I did the whole thing. I had my lapel mic on, and then I'm like, there's this buzzing in the back, and I'm like, oh, I got to bring this out Audition. I got to take that buzzing out. So it took me way longer than I thought.
It took us months. Like we used to have buzzing and clipping and all that, and then there's stuff that like it gets. Sometimes I have to call my buddy Jared, and then he kind of like can really dial this stuff in.
Yeah.
So every now and again, I'm like, hey, we need an overhaul, but the dust on all this equipment, and then like how like because it used to just be wires everywhere, but then we like ran it clean, and then he had it come up here, and then there's like the extra things that we have clipped into it, and then we went to the HDMI onto the cameras, and then that cut everything out, and then when we went directly into here. All it is like 2 or 3 things plugged into here, and it cut out all the bullshit. But forever, there was always clicking and just you'd have to add filters on and knock it off.
Yeah.
I forgot how much bullshit went into this.
And it's all through experience because I used to run sound for my band back in college. So then I learned about like all of the monitor stuff, like all of the equalization and stuff. Just from doing that and like knowing what not to do.
Yeah. I still don't really know how to use this at all. Jesse went to school for sound engineer, but it's so hard to keep up. Like we were only doing this once a week.
Yeah,
it's like now it's like I got to have so many out, and like I need to keep a rhythm to it where like, we had a call where we're going to get back on track going into the next one. But with opening the restaurant, I have to be months ahead of this because I'm not going to be able to. I don't want a podcast for 2 months because I have to focus on the restaurant.
Yeah.
So if I could edit all this and have it all waiting in YouTube, and it can be scheduled to drop.
Right.
Like that's great when you're that far ahead. But
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's crazy. I forget how much of. I'll find out next because we're going to be upgrading, and then when we do the cooking show, you're going to need a cameraman. It's not. You can't just set stuff still.
Yep.
So then now it's like, oh man, like now I got to figure out how I'm going to do that and work that in, or how are we going to figure it out to start, and like, But that's like the puzzle that keeps me going, and like that's what keeps me wanting to do it because you need to figure it out, and then you like now I have the confidence like sometimes where I'll be like stuck on a project and I take a deep breath and I'm like. You got this far with no money at all. You've literally left your full-time job and you get by doing this. Relax, like you've never not figured this out, and then that confidence comes through.
Yeah, exactly, and all of the experiences and stuff from previous will come in handy when you're doing it.
Always,
yeah. And I always suffer from that because it's like, oh man, I've never really done this, but I'm like, wait,
yeah, you have.
I have done
every
this.
Day. You do this every
I've been
day.
working on this.
Yeah.
And one of my friends called me up the other day, and I was doing like some stuff, and he's like, dude, you've been working at this for 10 years now. You've done this before.
Yeah.
So it's like
It's like a mental chess game. It's weird.
Yeah.
But
it's
weird.
fun. Like,
yeah.
The troubleshooting, like, photography is awesome because it's always problem solving. Like, there's this stupid thing that I can't get rid of. Why? And then you're like, oh, I need to bounce light off of this thing instead of like direct. Yeah. It's always like a weird kind of like, in the moment, you're like, oh man, this is so much fun because like there's always weird things you got to fix.
Yeah. There's like, and then I'm fortunate enough to have friends that are in the industry. So like when I present them with projects, they're like, yeah, let's do it. Cause they don't get to do fun projects. They just get to do like commercials and corporate stuff. And, you know, it's either setting up or breaking down or like, hey, you're a cameraman for the shoot. You're just being told what to do. So like when we come up with ideas, and want to like make that commercial, like it's refreshing for them to get out, but then I'm still learning from them how it all works. And I'm asking questions still. Like how I got into this is they started inviting me to shoots for like my one friend's music video. And then they were shooting a commercial for a haunted house back in the day. And, you know, they're like, they bring all the equipment and they all know what they're doing. And they were working for, what's the one off of 512, the production company, Clark Media. So like they would be able to use all that and literally bring like a U-Haul truck over with like, dude, back then it was crazy. They had like, cause remember when before drones, they used to use like the crane and they would like shoot the long shots for like the music videos where they would go out in the sky like that. So at one of the shoots, they had one of those, but I was just a coffee guy. Hey, Mike, can you go get, yeah. And I watched, learned. Yeah. Lighting still confuses me. I'm still learning it a little bit, but like JR comes down and sets a lot of that stuff up so I can just turn it on. But I'm super fortunate to have, but that's how it is though. If you have like-minded people working in media projects with you, they're going to help you because they know what it's like to be stuck.
And that's how I learned literally everything I know about it.
It's the best way to learn everything.
Yeah. And I don't feel like I'm self-taught because I've learned so much from people that I've worked with.
Yeah. That's how cooking is. That's how I learned all my basis for cooking is I never went to cooking school at all. And like, first of all, when anyone calls me a chef, I'm like, yeah, fat line cook. That's about it. Like I ran kitchens, but it was because people quit or got fired. Yeah. But I learned everything off of very talented people that I would just have questions. Well, how did you do that? What's the timing? What do you mean? And someone being like, if you touch this part of your hand, that means meat. So if it feels like this, that's medium rare. And then like just being in the kitchen and working with people. And then like, there's so many different cultures where it's like, I'm working with somebody from Italy, and then you start learning about their cultures and even like how they're having coffee and shit like that. And then it's just like, you absorb it all. It's just, I don't know. I feel like if school was that way, I would have done very well, but I think I needed to learn through trial and error and through like people explaining it. And then I would try it 3 times and get it. And then I would be obsessed with trying to do something else next.
And that's actually how I teach my class at Moravian. Yeah. And it's like, here's the stuff, here's the information. Now you got to do it. And if you don't keep doing it, and you're learning from doing. Yeah. And a lot of it, I mean, it's code. It's all like straight code. I mean, they're designers already, so I don't have to teach too much design, but it's straight like from the bottom up, like website code. And I'm like, you got to just get in there, and sometime, like maybe like 2 months down the line, something will go, and then everything's like, oh, now I get how I'm doing these things. And I think that's the best part of teaching at like anywhere, is to see your students go from like 0 to like doing amazing work. And you're just like, they did the work. Like, I mean, obviously I'm there to like help them along and like try to inspire them and do stuff, but just seeing people just really dial it in and get somewhere with it. It's just like, yes, that's exactly what you're here for.
I think a lot of people learn that way and they don't pay attention to that's how they learn. Mm-hmm. And then it's like when you have an instructor teaching that way, and then, because it's just a pattern. And then when the pattern of the puzzle clicks and then the student gets it, it's got to be really cool to actually see, because, the older I get, the more it's funny where they say older people are wiser, but it's true because you look at like how you evolved into like how I used to behave in a classroom where like I'd be so frustrated I would just break stuff and be like totally unteachable. Like the poster boy of AD, that was back when it was Ritalin and not Adderall. Yeah. So like, and then that version of the person, and then literally teaching myself how to deal with that, and then controlling it. And then now, even to the point where I'm like, I'll start feeling that way, and I'm like, you gotta go to Jacobsburg, bro. Like, you are not gonna be able to think that until you bring it down. And then then knowing your patterns and where to land stuff, and then just really being okay with the fact that I don't learn the same way as everybody, and I feel like nobody does learn the same way.
Right.
There's probably a majority group that can comprehend, but for me, it was always, I talked to my parents about it extensively, about being like, look, like, it's so cool to see me doing this, and this is all from me. I didn't go to school for any of this. I learned it all from people, and I took like one business class at NACYAC, and it was just odd to go back there. I was just an old guy, but like learning all that and finding out the way you learn, it's cool. There was a lot of parallels with this, and I really enjoyed talking with you. I love working with you whenever we do the projects with Pat, and this won't be the first time we do this, because we can definitely do one with Yanni and just the three of us, and kind of talk about how he uses social media and whatnot. What are the things that you brought down here? Because you always have
I always have weird stuff.
I like it though. The camera's here then.
Oh, this is my night vision setup for my helmet. So I have these are from night vision devices. And these are like this is a dual tube setup. So you have a tube for each eye, and this is like Ear Pro that kind of like swings out and comes over your ears. This is I use these nightly to walk my dog. Like, I'm one of those weird like nerds.
No. I love that you're into that. Yeah.
Like, it's funny because some of the people on like the different groups are like, yeah, you got to take your battery out when you're storing them. Like, I never store them. I just use them nightly.
Yeah.
And then this is a camera for like, doing all the cool guy stuff.
So that just mounts on the side there, and then you can kind of get like the first person's perspective doing the different
and these are built for helmets.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people use the GoPros, but the problem is that like I'm running night vision, so I can't have something centered.
Yeah.
Especially when something's like down like this.
Yeah.
So I have a side mounted helmet cam. But yeah, this is like my main go-to, and I've had this helmet since 2015.
That's crazy.
And it's
dope.
It's been super awesome, and I just upgraded some stuff up on the sides.
Now, do you tag like the different companies and stuff in it? Do you ever get traction from them, or do they repost stuff?
Yeah. Like let's see, like Christmas. I did a random post for like EOTech, which make sites, and then the guy who shot Bin Laden reposted it. And it got like huge traction.
I forget that dude's name.
I don't remember his name either.
I know who you're talking about. He was on like the Nelk Boys, and I think he was on Rogan's podcast.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's my photo. And he's like, oh, because he tagged like EOTech. I'm like, hey, this is mine. And he's like, oh, my bad, dude. So he tagged me, and then I just like tons of followers came in. I'm
that's
like,
cool.
What is this? So I always tag the companies because
absolutely. I was a friend of mine is just starting a business, and I was telling her like, hey, like here's a proactive way to start involving businesses, even if you don't get anything off of them for free. Never expect anything for free, but if they understand social media, they'll put you out there. Even the food stuff, when I like Duke's Mayonnaise does a lot of like real proactive It's crazy what their social media is for a mayonnaise company, but like, but they're huge. They did like a mayo bowl for like football and stuff, for the college games, but like they'll repost stuff all the time. Or Martin's Buns, like their social media is solely based on reposting. And then if you think about it, all they have to do is have somebody reposting good-looking burgers, and as long as it matches that, that person's job is 90% just reposting stuff.
I think it's also nice that Instagram, maybe in the last month or so, whenever you tag someone, they message you.
They can also come on as a collaborator.
Right,
so then now it just automatically goes to their feed, and it's not a repost, it's now in their feed. And I think some people still don't understand that, because like I'll take a picture of somebody's burger and then be like, oh cool, here's an invite, and then they'll decline it, and I'm like, it's free
content.
Work. I just wrote a nice story about your restaurant. Like, why would you deny that?
No, I like that they changed it, and I think they understood that so many people were using that repost app. That like might as well just build it into the system, and then it'll just stay on here, and then the people actually doing the content get credit, because it's always like when the repost app goes through, people don't get like tagged. It's always like that. Like,
Do you kind of hang on Instagram the most? I fell in love with Instagram the first time I used it. I liked that it was just, well, I wanted video on there, and then when it finally went to video, it is kind of getting a little Snapchatty with everything, but that is my still go-to for unloading content. It's my favorite place to do it.
Instagram feeds my Facebook, but I'm mostly on Instagram.
Facebook I don't get into a lot.
Yeah.
That's when you get people just saying, like, I'll post a burger and then they'll be like, well, I don't like burgers. And I was like, cool.
I
was
scrolling.
posting a burger. I didn't ask what you liked at all.
Yeah,
Why are you allowed to talk to me? I don't even know you. Why did I allow you to be my friend? We're not friends.
Yeah, no, and I like Instagram because I feel like it's less dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've actually separated my like gun stuff now.
Yeah.
So like I have like tedcolegrove.pews, which is like all gun and night vision related.
Yeah.
And then I have my photos where I can actually, because what was happening was I would do all this cool stuff and then I would post a photo of like food, or post a photo of like my son or something.
Yeah.
And then people were like, oh, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'll just separate them. Then I can post as much food and my son as I want. And I don't really care about like views or follows.
Yeah.
And then over here where I'm trying to build like a following and I'm trying to build like a little bit of
You run it up.
reputation,
Yeah.
I'll just run it up there.
Yeah, I've always kind of like branded this where it was always kind of me trying to figure something out. And then when it kind of clicked and it became something, it was still me always just trying to follow along. So people are almost following along for the journey and the story as well as watching what I'm doing in growth. Because a lot of times people, because I don't pay attention to any of that shit. I head down work and then I run into somebody and they'll be like, yo, that last podcast was dope. And I'm what? And then I forget like people are listening and watching. The only thing I really pay attention to right now is YouTube, because like I'm solely trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, because I will get a couple $100 a month, which will help. Like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
I'm like, cool, that money goes to paying rent, and then that's less out of my pocket to do this shit. So like, I pay attention to that, but it's weird that like, you know, people they're along for the ride, and then people be like, yeah, but then like people also know like where I came from because they've been there from the beginning. So like for me, it's a little different because I can do the food. And then if you don't care that I'm posting, if you don't like that I'm posting food, like I don't really care, because this is my personal account where I also share Never Again. I tried doing like Facebook pages and all that, and it was just like work. And I'm like, yo, I don't got time for this. I don't got an intern. It's only me. I'm editing. I'm doing all this shit. I like Instagram because a lot of times it doesn't feel like it's work. I feel like I'm sharing art. And then like, Facebook is always like, just feels like it's such a, like, you have to write it out correctly, where like Instagram, it's like I have a story that's going with a picture, and my story are going, and then, you know, people will be like, there's no link on the Facebook, and I'm like, bro, I don't even go on there. It's just going there because my mom's friends and you are there. Like, get out of that cesspool dumpster fire of Facebook. Like, if you pay to have like Google Analytics done through Facebook marketing, like you can definitely sell stuff through Facebook. And I think if Marketplace wasn't there and you couldn't sell stuff, I don't even know if it'd be a thing anymore. I feel like it'd be irrelevant. I also feel like the younger kids don't even use it. Like my buddy's kids, they're on Snapchat, and they like, now that I'm thinking about it, they don't even bring up Facebook. Like the young generation, I do not think
they don't use Facebook.
At all. I feel like you're just monitored.
You're just like on IG or TikTok or Snapchat.
TikTok was weird. I had a friend Kelly kept like trying to get me to do it. I'm just like, I don't know.
It's a wild place. And you just have to understand like the demographic. But I as much as like it's full of like all these like girls or whatever, the art side, which since I look at the art side, I get like the art side.
Once you start getting on to
there's
stuff,
some really cool art stuff.
Because I'll start like getting into it. Like, I'll go through that late at night, just kind of like before I'm passing out, like the last 10 minutes of just burning yourself out on a computer screen. There's some cool stuff on there. Like, there's some people who like give out information, where I follow this one dude. It's crazy because he's got like 10 million followers, and he's probably like 13, 14. And he posts weird stories about animal attacks, serial killers, or like haunted places, but he does it very well, where it's like he puts like weird music behind it, and then it's just facts, and it's only about a minute long. I don't know why I watch like bear attacks before I go to sleep. It's just what I do, and then I'm like, man, I got no sleep at all. But there is some stuff on there that's worth following, but like the dancing and all that shit, Because then if you start watching that, then that's all that's
all you
coming
get.
through
Yep.
is just nonsense.
Yeah. So, and then Instagram Reels came through, and then I started watching like there's a lot of good photographers on Instagram.
Yeah, Reels are fun to go
yeah.
through. I think they're a little bit easier to get through and a little bit more older than what TikTok is.
And I think what I like about the Instagram Reels is that if you watch a reel, you can actually go to their actual
Yes.
Instagram
Yeah,
account and then actually see like real content.
Yeah.
Not just like more reels.
Yes. Yeah.
So I appreciate that because I'm actually there just like.
And reels go out far, and they're pushing you to do reels. So it's like you could do a reel and it could go out to 5,000 to 10,000 people, and I'm like, and then you put all this work into a video, and the videos stop at 1:30, and I'm like, they want you to use the reels.
Yeah, and oddly enough, like I'm trying to get into shooting that weird 9x16 like.
Because like that's
so weird to me.
Well, that's backwards to me. What's funny is, and I was talking to my friend, is like posting reels and Snapchat is filming wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
feels weird, right?
You don't film that way. Because I was even turning my camera sideways for a while because then you would load it up and that's how YouTube looked. So the format was that. But then when they switched it to this, like, there's times when I have an idea of like trying to edit something and I'm like, oh, well, like, how am I going to do that? Then I'm like, then you almost have to use your phone. Because if I use one of these, then I have to change it in post to 16:9. And then I'm like, I don't even know how to do that because you never wanted it to be 16:9. And then it's like, now it's like, you have to use your phone. And then like, I'm going to upgrade my phone probably this week. Cause it's like, I'll like connect it to a speaker and the battery's gone in 30 seconds. But
I actually went out and bought a gimbal that had a L bracket built in.
Yeah, the gimbals are nice for the phones.
And actually, I'm using my camera, but the L bracket is built in, so all I have to do is take it off and put it sideways, and then it's built into the gimbal.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So then I can shoot. But I mean, it was tough for me because for the longest time, like that's the 16:9 was like how we shot, and then everybody's turning it on the side, and now I'm like shooting 9x16, and some people are of the thinking, well, why don't you just shoot it in 4K and crop? And I'm like, well, I want to.
Cropping never works.
Cropping works sometimes, but then you have to have everything in the center. But I want to actually compose in the format that I'm going to be shooting at. So then
it's way easier to edit it just how you want it to look.
Yeah.
Because there's been times where I wanted to do stuff and then like it would upload it and then it would crop to like the middle, but like my head's over here and it's like focused on my shoulder and I'm like, I'm not putting this out.
Right. Yeah. So now I'm accustomed if I know I'm going to be doing something for a reel or like something for like a phone, then I will take my camera and physically turn it to the side and shoot in that 9x16 odd thing. And I did something for night vision devices the other day shooting that way. And I'm like, man, this is so weird to me. And then in post, like I had to turn it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's also crazy how much equipment now is being built to like the gimbals for the phone. And then like, even with the newer phones, it's like, dude, that looks really good. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's passable. Like, even like, I like doing high-end content, but I know the work that goes into it. So we're doing a comedy thing down here on April 9th. And if you I'm getting like the links tomorrow. If you have the night open, you're more than welcome to come down. But like, we're doing like a full production down here. Like, it's going to look like a Netflix special.
Oh, yeah.
So like, I can't do that all the time. That's people offering their free time or even having a budget to pay people like that. But I like doing those as like every couple of months, drop like a big banger video to be like, nope, this is where I want to be, but I'm doing mostly everything with my phone. So like, I think my next move, because this, like the video, everything, this thing is so overused at this point that like, and from being dropped that I need to trade it in. But when I trade it in, like I'm excited to get into that new camera and like even put a little bit of money into to get a gimbal for it. And then like keep my basic stuff that I'm, especially with food, like having this and like getting a little light and a gimbal, like I could crush little content like that. I'm not going to bring all my stuff out because a lot of times, like even today, I didn't know I was going to go to Two Rivers, but then I went up there and I ran into Jeremy and I was like, oh, we were talking about doing a podcast, so I booked him for the podcast. Then I was like, cool, I'm going to have lunch, but I'm also going to use this as content because their food's ridiculous. So like it looks good. Yeah, it looks good on taking a picture with a phone. It looks awesome. Yeah. So like on the go, I can just do all that stuff, but I also like super high. I mean, this whole podcast idea was we didn't know what we were doing, but just overproduce the shit out of it so it looks ridiculous, and then it's people talking about nothing. That was the show.
Yeah.
And like it's grown into this interview thing, but like with going to the next one, like I want to have shows where we just kind of sit around and bullshit. I mean, that's been mostly this, but like I like overproducing that.
Yeah.
People enjoy watching. Like if this looked like shit, no one would want to watch it, but everyone's like, hey, it looks really good because there's lighting involved.
Yeah.
And it helps with all that. But all the equipment for the phones and everything, it's nuts. It's nuts what you can get into.
Yeah, and the more equipment you add, the more time it adds.
Yep.
So like and I love overproducing stuff because like it kind of, especially when I'm getting paid for the job, I'll rope the amount I'm like say I need a new gimbal, I'll rope that cost into the job. So I'm like, this gimbal gets paid for this job. So it's like, so I love using new stuff, but then I'm adding stuff, and then like I get more and more stuff in my car, and then like I was down in,
and then you have to take everything. It's like I don't know if I'll be able to use this.
My friends hated me because we went down to West Virginia. I took up the whole truck. We had to bring a whole other truck because I had 3 huge Pelican cases full of photography equipment. And I literally used like maybe like 3 things out of each case.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I have it, then I can like use it. But
it's like overpacking
Yeah.
when you're going on vacation and shit. I always do that with everything.
Yeah.
Even with going to get content, I'll bring cameras and stuff, and then it was just easier to start using the phone, and then it like wasn't a whole project. You don't got to worry about like the battery because you can plug it in, and like it was just easier to do it. What's the bag you brought?
So this is a guy a guy I know out of California. He makes these custom bags. And I'm obsessed with this, obviously, like the splatter camo.
Yeah.
So he made me this splatter camo bag, and this is actually the smaller.
Yeah, because you almost had that for everything, right?
Yeah, I have it for my wallet. I have it for a lot. It's either multicam, black, or splatter.
Yeah.
So he made me this, and there's a bigger one that I'm gonna be using as like my carry-on for like planes.
Yeah. But that's dope though, because you can probably just bring both those bags and it's done.
It's done, and this is my camera bag where I have like these pockets. And this is like tactical stuff, so it's like all Velcro.
Yeah.
So this is like my main camera bag now.
What's the company that does
it's
that?
called Roan Industries.
Yeah.
And he's awesome. He makes all of my like. He's really got me into splatter because he'll do
like custom bags and apparel. And
yeah,
stuff
so
like
he's getting into bags. He usually does like rifle slings.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
And he did my when I first got into splatter, he did he makes these padded camera straps. So I was like, hey, can you do this in splatter? And he's like, yeah, I can. And then it just kind of snowballed.
Yeah, can you do this in splatter? Can you make me a wallet in splatter?
Can you make me like 2 full-size backpacks in splatter? I also want pink inside.
Yeah. That's dope though.
Yeah.
What are your plans with everything that you see kind of growing? I mean, do you want it to grow more? Are you happy with where it's at now because you have a family and everything? Or like, where do you see this kind of project you're doing with everything? Because I know you do a lot of work for Yanni, and I'm sure you're going to pick up more food stuff just from doing his food stuff. But like, where do you see this kind of all going?
I'm just trying to like find a separate sort of income. Like every month or so, I'm trying to find like different projects to work on. So that's really, I just want to, find something new every month to work on. And so far, I mean, I'm booked out till like May, which is actually pretty soon now since it's almost
You're
April.
still 2 months out.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I like doing this stuff on the side because even though I do design and design management at my full-time job, it's corporate. So you do have like specific things that you have to follow.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy like the creativity that I can put into like doing some tactical thing or doing like a food thing or doing like a wedding, or I'm shooting like a video for a festival about a train station in Phillipsburg in June. So there's always something new, and I find that really helps my kind of like, I need to do something.
It feeds it.
It really feeds that. And I think that really helps me kind of like keep sane because I really enjoy.
No, you don't got to explain it to me.
I really enjoy being all over the place.
That's my favorite part about bringing people on. It's like, oh, cool, you're not the only crazy person. There's a bunch of them out there.
Not, and I feel like as creatives, that's kind of how we are. We're just always doing something.
I always needed, and like I gave up on like before I would kind of like keep it to myself or like wouldn't bring it to the front of my thought. But then like at one point I was like, you know, someone was like, well, why are you leaving? And I was like, I want a new palette. Like, I don't want to, I won't be down here anymore. Like, I've been down here for 4 years. There's no thing else to do. If I repaint the walls are different. I don't want to keep doing that. Like, I want the show to grow, and I want, you know, and then I like realized like every time I clean the palette, I'm growing the show. I'm growing myself. I'm learning life lessons. Like, that growth and everything needs to be forced sometimes. Yeah. And then, you know, I really like just having, I mean, before you got here, I was on the phone with the apparel guy, and like you know, he does drop shipping, which is very difficult to find in this area.
Yeah.
So like he's now setting up drop shipping, but now I can offer that to my small business people who don't want to spend the money on putting 500 shirts in. But also drop shipping to me has now like, I was like, oh, I have 300 to 500 designs that I've done since I was 28. So now I can slowly leak all that out again, and if nobody buys it, it's content.
I should get that contact because I do drop shipping from a company down in like Virginia.
Yeah,
like that make these these things. Because I don't have the space for inventory. So
no, I can give you his info. I mean, he's literally 10 minutes down the road. So
awesome.
The other thing that's cool is like, you know, we were talking about like, I'm getting the shirt ready for the working class video we're doing. And I was like, oh, cool. Like I used to do a lot of stuff out of Axelrad and Scranton, but they're too big and they don't have time for the smaller stuff.
Yeah.
The drop shipping is a waste of time for them right now. And it's like, I would have to buy inventory with this guy. He already has inventory with everything. So, and he's a one-man show, and I can help build his business out by giving him work. But then I was like, oh, cool. You could literally walk through my parents' backyard and be at his house where his setup is. So
that's great.
The whole bottom of his house is a DTG printer. He's got embroidery. He just got an 8-head printer, and then now he's getting a new dryer. And I'm like, are you going to get into like, you know, sublimation and like what's the other one where they just rip the colors out? I used to do it on all my old stuff, but he's like, yeah, now I'm gonna have the correct stuff to do it. But he's hungry, and he's building a business. But like everybody I talk to that wants to do it, like I've already gotten Local Stone wants to go over there. I know Ted Park from Ted Park Designs or whatever, when he's wanting to go over there from the jiu-jitsu, and it's like really been like a lot of people are like super, and the pricing isn't bad at all.
Yeah.
I think I would make more doing it through him than I would Shopify and Printful and all that stuff.
That's what I do right now.
But now you have control over it, where I can go up there and like, you know, he can do a sample for me in 15 minutes. I don't like, there's no one to talk to.
Right.
Like I was ready to pull the trigger on Printful, but I don't like that I can't talk to anyone to be like, hey, can you just invert the colors, or hey, that's going to look a little bit different. And then you have to just keep buying samples until it looks good.
Right.
And then if it's not, now you have like an outline of like a square because that's the artwork. But like I can call him and be like, hey, this artwork's a little off. And then he'll kick it to somebody. And it's like, so now I'm getting a little bit of the best of both worlds, where you have the attention that I used to get from Axelrad or could get now. It's just, I'm dealing with smaller businesses. If I have something large, I'll definitely kick it to Axelrad but that's what they do. They do massive ordering. But yeah, the drop shipping, and I mean, he fucks with the show. He started sponsoring the show, and I was like, yeah, well, I'll float you business all day. Like, you're keeping my lights on and helping me out. Like, I legitimately care about helping these businesses. I know where this dude is. He wants to make the jump from his full-time job to where he can make enough money to cover insurance. And like, I'm like, dude, I'll give you a large chunk of business. So many people think I print clothing. I'm like, no, I don't. I should have. I'd have way more money, but yeah. I mean, if you want his info, I can give it to you.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't know, man. We'll keep going. I knew it would. We're going longer than I thought. Plus, I want to get you home to the kiddo and all that. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been wanting to do this for a while. It was awesome meeting you. We kind of clicked as soon as you came down for Yanni's project. I'm sure I'll see you again working with him, or if you want to come down on the 9th, you're more than welcome. I want to give you a chance to kind of let everybody know where they can get a hold of you if they want to hire you, if they want to follow you for tactical or personal or just kind of everything that you do. You can just plug yourself.
If you're looking at any of my stuff, it's tedcolegrove.com. It's my name.com. And then on Instagram, it's tedcolegrove.photos. That's my personal like food and baby mostly and family. And then tedcolegrove.pews is my tactical night vision stuff.
Cool. Cool. You mix it up nicely on there. I like when you do the music stuff too, and you're not afraid to put yourself out there. It's a good follow.
Yeah, my car beats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a while.
They're fun. Yeah, go check out all his stuff. Like I said, if you even peel back into our social media, there was a commercial or a video that we shot when Yanni made food down here for Pat's in Bethlehem. Thank you so much for coming on. If you're a first-time listener, first-time follower, it is neveragainstudio.com. That's where we have our apparel and everything like that. You can get the links to the YouTube, the links to the podcast. If you don't want to go to the website, then you can just go to Spotify, all that stuff where you listen to your podcast. Just search Never Again Studio. YouTube is Never Again Studio, and subscribe to that because I'm trying to climb the ladder. We're like halfway to being monetized. YouTube followers are not fun or easy to get. So I think it'll be easier once the cooking show's out. Then I think there's like a lot more traction. But like people stumbling onto my stuff, it's like, you're just putting somebody's name for the title. So I'm excited to get into the food. Thank you so much, man. I'm going to let you go home and whatnot, get back to the kid. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Man.
Never Again Radio. Get into it, brother.